we're back. We're here to talk about the next 5 books, and y'all, it was a rough reading week. So because I'm doing it in groups of 5 for this channel instead of like on TikTok where I'm just doing week by week, some of these books are from a previous good reading week and most of these are from the rough week I just had. So we'll get the book that I've read from a previous week out the way that I absolutely adored, and that was Luster by Raven Lelani. I've been putting it off because I thought it was going to be a lot heavier and darker than it was, and don't get me wrong, it's not a light read, but it isn't as traumatizing as I thought it was going to be. So the whole premise of this book is we're following a 23-year-old black female artist, and she finds herself entangled in a relationship with this older white guy who is married and has a kid, and she hates her job, and then she loses that job that she hates and she can't afford to live in her apartment anymore and ends up, through truly bizarre circumstances, living with this married couple who she's hooking up with the man and with their black adopted child. So the premise alone, so interesting. It's written with this sense of hyper-realism that's meant to be jarring. It's meant to make you uncomfortable. But like I said, it doesn't push it too far to the point where you're hating the experience of reading. You don't like the characters. Well, I love seeing messy women do messy things, so I did really enjoy the women in this book. I hated the guys, which I think is kind of the point, is you're not supposed to like the men in this book. It did deliver that. The biggest point of this book is seeing this 23-year-old grapple with the fact that she's romanticized the idea of dating older men without realizing like the power dynamics that happen in those sorts of relationships, and that was so satisfying to read. There's so many quotes in this book that were just they were juicy, and I had to highlight them because I was having such a good time reading this. This is the kind of book that's written with a perspective, and that perspective, like, this character is navigating the world and seeing the world in a very specific way, and so it's so enjoyable to read from that perspective, and you feel so grounded in the world, and it ends up with these like quotes that are stunning. The second book that I read, really, we took a dive, and that is Notorious by Minerva Spencer. This one I picked up because it was part of like this series, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll check out the first book to see like if I want to read the rest of the series. The answer is a hard no. I will not be continuing on. I couldn't figure out if she was doing an accent for the male protagonist, which would be problematic in a way, and I couldn't tell because I was listening to this on the quickest speed I could get it on because I was just trying to get through it. I did laugh a lot reading this book, but not because it was supposed to be funny. So the premise of this book is we're following Drusilla, who is obsessed with her best friend's stepbrother, Gabriel. He and his mom formerly lived in Algeria. His mom was married to a very important official there, but then they left because the dad died and there was like a whole war about who was going to control their city. So he left for safety. His mom remarried an Englishman, and that's how he is in this society. He's often portrayed as not fully fitting into this society because he has like brutish ways and is not as refined as the Englishman or whatever. Like, that's what was making me uncomfortable. Like I mentioned in a TikTok I had filmed, it was not a great reading experience, and I was questioning everything, being like, is this offensive? Am I gaslighting myself into thinking this is offensive? It was offensive. So what happens is Drusilla and his sister go for a walk. Drusilla ends up separated from his sister for some reason that I don't remember at this point, and she's put in a compromising situation. Gabriel comes to save her. They're put in a compromised situation because everyone sees this, and then they have to get married. So they get married, and it's all about Drusilla like longing after this guy, and he doesn't think she's hot, so like it's like a battle of the wills, whatever. And on the side, the guy that put Drusilla in a compromising situation did so because he is racist toward Gabriel for no reason, but again, sometimes there isn't a reason for it. So the entire book is like him scheming to do something to Gabriel, and then it's resolved, whatever. It wasn't the worst writing quality I read this week. We're gonna get to that book later, but it was not a good time regardless. So I will not be continuing on in Miss Spencer's works. We're gonna hard pass. So the third book that I read, I have a stack of books that are in my room that I'm like, these books I'm probably gonna enjoy. I have an active interest in reading these, so I decided to pick up one of those after reading Notorious, because I was like, I need to do like a book that will solidly be at least a 3-star read for me, and the Roughest draft more than delivered on that. It was a 4-star. This book is comped often to Beach Read because it follows 2 authors who are at odds with each other. They used to be co-authors, they used to write books together, and then something happens and they go their separate ways. Katrina doesn't write anymore, she stops writing, she gets engaged to her literary agent, and Nathan continues writing, but he's not doing as well as he should. So his agent suggests that he gets back together with Katrina. They're on contract for one more book with their publisher, and that will make selling his other books easier. So Katrina agrees because her literary agent agent fiance, again, this is why you should not engage yourself to your literary agent. He is like, I need money, I've made some bad investments, bestie, can you do this and like go back and write with this man even though you very clearly don't want to, and she does. So we get both Nathan and Katrina's perspectives, and I really enjoyed the fact that they're obviously writing a book and you can see the ways that book parallels what's happening in the actual novel because it's purposefully done. That's the whole premise, is that they've been writing themselves into these books this whole time. I just love that framework for the story. If you didn't like Beatrix because it had too much of the other stuff and not enough romance, this is the book for you because the romance is the point of this book. I will say none of the side characters are well fleshed out. The literary agent fiance is cartoon villain to a T, but I accepted it. It was fun. It was like, oh, it made it easy to be like, you know what? Break up with this man and get back with your ex. I highly recommend the audiobook. I love the narrators for that, and I will definitely be picking up these two authors' next book, which I'm pretty sure is out in January, but we know I'm not getting to it anytime soon. So now to talk about another book that was kind of a drag, not even kind of a drag, it was a drag for me. It dragged, and that is The Most Eligible Bride in London by Quinn. Another series I will not be continuing. This is the second book in the series, but you know, it's kind of like one of those where you don't have to, like, you don't have to read them in order. You're just picking them up. So I had this one. It's a whole bunch of nothing is the easiest way to describe it. It was somehow the longest audiobook I read this week. It was 12 hours long, and yet nothing happened. Two people got shot. People got shot. Someone died, I'm pretty sure. Me telling you that is more interesting than the book actually delivered. So let me read this review that I found on Goodreads that I feel really describes my experience with it. To quote this review, "This was the most painful, boring, and uninteresting historical romance I have ever read." So this plot follows, who are the characters? I don't even remember the characters' names at this point. So our girly Henrietta, she is buying children on the street who are being offered by men. She's paying them to buy these children to save them. I think it is just encouraging these men to sell children, and therefore technically is human trafficking, but we're not gonna get into that. So we start the book with her saving a baby, and this man, this dandy, Father B, Nathaniel, the names are, I listened to this on 3 speed. I remember nothing except how much I did not like this book. He is saving this girlie who went destitute because her family put her out after she got pregnant out of wedlock. She lives in his like parish or whatever, like his area that he controls. I don't know how this lord thing works. She's one of his little like tenants, and he saves her for the family, like brings her to a new family so that she can live with them. So they meet while they're both doing that because it happens at the same place, and he realizes that Henrietta is in danger and saves her, and she shoots someone, and it's kind of chaotic, and then she's like, yo, who's this hot guy that helped me with this baby purchase? They spend the first 100 pages of this novel trying to make an introduction because you're not allowed to talk to a man if you don't know who he is through someone else or whatever. Again, I was zoning out at certain points. So it drags, to say the least. It took to save the cat too seriously because they were saving babies left, right, and center. Like, that was the whole point. This whole book is them discussing topics to prove how good they are as people. And I was talking to my roommate about it, and she was like, is this supposed to be a Christian romance? And no, it's not, because they fully have sex before they get married. Very toward the end of the book, but also the driest sex scene I've ever read in my life. Like, it was bad. I had been like, where's the horny? And the horny never arrived. It just went from like zero like attraction to each other to like boning. When I say dry, it was dry. I was like, there was no foreplay. It was like straight up. It was bad. But yeah, they would discuss things like slavery. It's bad, but we have to pay the slavers money for the slaves they lost, or else we'll be in war. And women deserve rights. Like, it was very like on the nose, not great, not subtle in the slightest. The guys that she shot at the beginning of the book wanted revenge, and so they came toward the end, and there was a kidnapping, and so much happened, and yet nothing happened at all. That was that book for me. But the final book, she delivered. Also, nothing happens really in this book, but in honorific, non-derogatory, that is Miss Lattimore's Letter. This is the second book in the same Regency world that this author is exploring. I don't think they're tied to each other in any way, but maybe they are. It's been a minute since I read the first one. The first book is Mr. Malcolm's List, which was adapted into a film, and the reason that one was on my radar was because there was a whole like talk about it because it took a all-white book and cast the characters as people of color, which was like Afro British and all of that stuff. It delivered what it needs to deliver for me, which was absolutely no stakes. No stakes, no thoughts, just fluff, good time, easy, quick read. And after reading 2 really bad historical romances, I was like, I need something that will deliver, and Miss Suzanne did what she needed to do for me. The protagonist, Sophie, overhears this couple discussing the fact that they've made promises to each other, but the woman in the couple is also being courted by another man, and she's like, don't worry, I'm gonna ditch this man, I'm gonna be with you. But Sophie knows that's not the case, because the mom of the woman actually really prefers the other guy, Fitzgerald, I'm pretty sure was his name, because he's richer, like has more esteem, more status. So she writes a letter to the man that the mother prefers, being like, hey, just so you know, I overheard this conversation. She's not really that into you. I think she's doing it because her mom wants her to, but this other girl who is friends with your sister really likes you. So like, I think head that way. And he does, and he finds out that Sophie Lattimore wrote the letter and tells everyone. He's like, yo, bestie, Sophie wrote this and she was on point, like she saved me. And so she becomes really popular, and everyone wants her to like set them up with people, including Sir Edmund, who's like, yo, can you help set me up with people? Like, I want to get married this season. But actually he's doing that as a ploy to like get closer to Sophie. And then they go to Bath together, like the whole family, like both of their families are in Bath. And then appears her first love. He jilted her. He went and married someone else, even though he was paying lots of attentions to her, to the point where she was shunned by society after he decided to marry someone else. There's like other side characters and couples that are like being like, Sophie, please help me, like save my marriage, which is very cute. It gives me what Emily in Paris gives me, and that is no stakes, no serious fear of having an emotion that isn't fun. And it was my least stressful read of the week, and I appreciated that. So those are books 11 to 15 that I read, and I will see you next time with my 16 to 20.